Welcome back to Liberty Nation TV. This is your host, Scott Cosens, and I'm here with Mark Angelides, LibertyNation.com's managing editor. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Scott.
We're going to talk about Michigan's Justin Amash, the first ever libertarian in Congress. He was elected as a Republican and has switched parties, and perhaps could have some interesting consequences for Biden's candidacy. What does the latest polling tell us about Mr. Amash's run for the White House, Mark?
Thanks, Scott. Well, as with most third-party candidates, there's not a huge amount of traction, but what there is could be quite significant in terms of what it does to the race. See, the latest Monmouth University polling has originally, just in a head-to-head between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, it was 50% for Joe Biden, 41% for Trump. But when they put Justin Amash into the mix on his 5% support in that particular poll, that was 3% off Biden and just 1% off Trump. So what this is showing us is that if a strong showing from Amash, and obviously this isn't going to be across the country, but in certain key states, it is really going to upset Biden's chances.
Are you as surprised as I am that Amash polls more heavily and significantly from Biden than from Trump?
Not really, to be honest, Scott, because what you've got is you've got some people who wouldn't vote for Donald Trump if he cured cancer with a snap of his fingers. That's just the way they are, and that's entirely their right.
You know, I heard he had some stock in that cancer drug company, Mark.
Yeah, I heard that
clearly
too.
It's self-dealing.
About $1 or two. But
right.
But what's happening is you've got a lot of Democrats who could never vote for Donald Trump. They just never could. But also, they can't bring themselves to vote for Joe Biden.
Right.
And this is the reality. I mean, we've seen it with a lot of journalists who are just saying, for example, one of the co-founders of both The Hill and Politico, he went on a rant against an article that was saying, we just need to coronate Biden. It doesn't matter. Whatever can be done to beat Donald Trump. And you see journalists saying, it doesn't matter if you believe Tara Reid, vote for Joe Biden.
Well, that's what a coronation does, right?
Yeah,
I think the reason why I find myself a bit surprised is just because, and for people who don't know, libertarians are the party of limited or low or sometimes no government. So they want, for instance, low taxes and low regulation generally. And when I look at the difference between the way Trump governs and the way Biden has governed and proposes to govern, it seems like a much more natural fit. Not that I would call Trump a libertarian, to be sure, but between the two. Let's shift our gears and go to a place where personality has no bearing, the betting markets. One of the great differences between our two countries is that in the UK, betting on political outcomes is common and legal. What are the betting markets saying about Biden's presidential chances?
Well, as you know, I have a column on this every week on LibertyNation.com called Political Horse Race. And so I follow the political betting market, especially for the US, just rampantly. I can't take my eyes off the thing. But what we're seeing for Joe Biden now, this is very interesting. 3 weeks ago, Joe Biden was 1-33 to win the nomination. That's a very secure position, very secure. 2 weeks ago, he was 1-10 to win the nomination. Today, at time of recording, he's 1-8 to win the nomination. So what's happening here is that there's a lot of things impacting what was an almost certain candidacy, and they're just cutting down on his lead. Now, that doesn't bode well for Biden this close to an election. What he should be seeing this close to the Milwaukee convention, especially, is it going the other way? It should be 1-100 that he's going to get the nomination, but that's not happening. It's going slowly the other way.
Just for people who may be a little bit confused by the numbers, a 1-100 would be the opposite of a long shot coming in. You might say 100-1 odds, which means you place a $1 bet and you'd get 100 back if you were correct.
Exactly right. On 1-100,
you have to bet $100 in order to get $1 because it's such a locked-in situation.
Exactly right. Yeah. So as it stands right now, if you bet $8, you'll get $1, which is obviously it's still almost a sure thing. I mean, you would bet on it if it was a horse, for example.
Well, no, the trend there is the important line, and it is a much less attractive bet than it has been. Let's finish up with a question about the Jamaican Indian American candidate, Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris, of course.
Yes. What's the news with her?
Well, that's also very interesting, especially from the betting market perspective, because when she was in the race as a candidate for the nomination, she did quite well. But then, of course, she dropped out. Her numbers started to go back, and then she just dropped out. But this week, we've seen her re-enter the lists. And this is rather strange for this to happen. Now, it's a very, very long shot. It's 75-1. But the fact that she's back in the lists, even though she's not a candidate, tells us one thing. And that is that there's a certain group of cash bettors out there who think that Joe Biden will first get the nomination at Milwaukee and then have to drop out before November. And there appears to be a growing betting market on that proposal.
We offer these for amusement purposes only and do not encourage wagering. Mark Angelides from the UK for LibertyNation.com. Thank you so much.
Many thanks.
And thank you for watching. See you next time.